After my miscarriage, I changed every habit that my sheriff husband found annoying. He stopped asking where he was going. When he didn't come home all night, I slept peacefully. After getting injured in a drug enforcement operation, the doctor asked me to notify my family. I calmly replied, I have no family. The nurse recognized me as Mrs. Shun and said Captain Shum was in the adjacent station. I shook my head, but half an hour later, Shun Yizhen still came. His voice was cold and hard as he demanded to know why I hadn't contacted him. I lowered my eyes and said, it was a minor injury. Not worth disturbing Captain Shina. Outside the door, officers were chatting. Captain Shum was so attentive to Miss Shaw. She twisted her ankle singing at a nightclub, and he dispatched a police car and carried her in his own arms. Shun Yizhen nervously glanced at me, waiting for me to interrogate him like I used to. But I didn't even flutter my eyelashes. I just lay there with my eyes closed. In his police car, he explained he was just following procedure. Shaoxi performed in his precinct, so as the responsible officer, he had to help. I hummed softly in response. He suddenly exploded, accusing me of not believing him, of still being angry, saying he'd already returned the family, and what more did I want? Looking out the window, I said I believed him. I just didn't think I needed to bother him. He slammed the steering wheel. Across the street, Shaoxi looked up. In the cold winter night, she wore only a thin performance outfit, her nose red from the cold. Shen Hum was already on the door handle. I took the hint, got out, and said I'd walk home if he needed to patrol. He chased after me, grabbing my wrist, insisting he had nothing to do with her anymore. I nodded and said I understood a young girl trying to make a living. It was normal to show concern. At the corner, I stopped and looked back. He had draped his jacket over Zhao Zihi's shoulders, cupped her face, and kissed her deeply. I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. I'd never again lose my mind the way I did the first time I caught him cheating. Back then, he'd sneered at me after I bloodied his nose. If you had any self-respect, you wouldn't have stayed with me since you were 18. Your own parents didn't want you. I took you out of the orphanage and raised you. You should be grateful. Shen Noi. I had both grown up in orphanages. When I was 18, the director tried to sell me to an old bachelor. He pulled me over the wall as we escaped. He turned back and shouted, "Then I'll protect her for life." He rented the cheapest room in the city, signed up at the police station, and promised to transfer me once he'd earned enough merit. His rookie year, he worked like mad in the serious crimes unit. Before every dangerous mission, he'd put my photo in his breast pocket. I worked a desk job at police affairs. In our poorest days, we shared a single bowl of instant noodles for New Year's. He eventually joined the Special Tactics Unit, and I transferred to intelligence analysis. His rank climbed higher and higher, and the colleagues around him changed more and more frequently. Then I found a lipstick stain inside his collar. He said he'd accidentally brushed against a girl who'd twisted her ankle. He told me to stop being so suspicious. I started checking his mission logs, his call records, even sneaking around the station. As if out of spite, he really did start cheating woman after woman, even showing off scratch marks on his back to provoke me. A year ago, he suddenly settled down, keeping only one girl named Shaoxi. I had her investigated. When I saw her photo, I broke down. She looked exactly like me at 18, innocent and clear-eyed. He'd rather love a substitute than love me. That night, I slit my wrists in the bathtub. He broke down the door, his hands shaking, and carried me to the hospital, his eyes bloodshot. He swore he'd never see anyone else again. That same day, the department found me. 2 names had been added to the list of martyrs from the drug war years ago, my biological parents. I held the file, my fingers cold. After hanging up, I went to the window. He was holding Zhao tightly in his arms, telling her he couldn't leave me yet because I was emotionally unstable. But once I was better, he'd give her the answer she deserved. They kissed like star-crossed lovers. On the 7th day in the hospital, I understood. I had to leave him. I had to cut it all away myself. I filed for divorce and a transfer. When I went to return the first temporary dormitory we'd ever been assigned, the door was ajar. Through the crack, I saw Shazi Hi's performance costume scattered on the floor. He had her against the wall, on the hand gripping her hip. He still wore our wedding band. I clenched my fists, exhaled slowly, pulled the door shut, and left. A young female officer asked if I wanted to report it. I said no. He caught up with me downstairs, breathless, his collar crooked. He asked what I'd heard. I said I was just passing by to return the key. The door was closed and I left. He visibly relaxed. He'd been on a mission all week. He said, "I only lent Shaji the key because she needed a place to rest." I didn't bother exposing his lie. As I turned to leave, glass shattered behind us, then flames erupted. He grabbed my chin, his eyes blazing with fury. He thought I'd set the fire, that I hadn't really let go. He shoved me aside and ran into the flames. I was about to leave when I remembered my divorce papers and my parents' inheritance documents were still locked in that room. I grabbed an extinguisher, smashed the glass, and climbed through the window. He was carrying Georgie out. When he saw me, his eyes went cold and he demanded to know what I was doing there. I went to the safe. The moment it opened, the chandelier crashed down. He instinctively shielded Georgie and jumped back. I was thrown by the blast, and everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital. He had opened the file bag. It contained our marriage certificates. He asked if I'd almost gotten myself killed just for these. I said without them, I couldn't submit my divorce papers. He frowned, saying we all would have been fine. Why did I have to force him to make such an impossible choice to prove I mattered? He explained that he saved Georgie first, because she had no protection while I had emergency training. I hummed inferently. He said he'd return to the family and would have no more to do with Shaji, that she just came from a difficult background and he was helping her through official channels. I finally looked at him. My eyes were as still as dead water. My calmness drove him mad. He saw the burns on my arm and asked if one scar wasn't enough, why I needed to use more wounds to trap him. I said I wouldn't. His encrypted communicator buzzed. Shazi Hi's tearful voice came through. He whispered a few words, told me to rest, and left. The calls kept coming for days. I had the nurses answer, saying my condition was stable and visits were unnecessary. The day I was discharged, an elderly woman cut in front of me at the checkout counter. Her son-in-law was Captain Shen Yizhen. Then Shen Yizhen arrived with Georgie. He pulled me aside and lowered his voice. Shazi Hi's mother had a bad heart and couldn't get upset. I was an officer. I should let a civilian go first. Shazi Hi's eyes were red as she apologized. She'd only said Yizhen was her boyfriend, because she was afraid her mother wouldn't agree to expensive medicine. I nodded and turned to leave. Behind me, Georgie tearfully asked if I was angry. He answered softly she never had parents. She can't understand how you feel. My fingers tightened on my cane. His footsteps approached from behind. I walked faster, my cane slipped and I fell. My burn wound opened again. Tears fell uncontrollably all my life. Holidays had been the hardest. Watching warm lights in other people's windows, hearing their laughter, it cut like a dull knife. He knew better than anyone how much that scar hurt. But now, to comfort Georgie, he tore it open again and again. He rushed over to pick me up. Before he could speak, a thermos flew through the air. Hot soup splashed across my face. Shazi Hi's mother was shaking with rage, calling me a seductress. She slapped me, then hit me with her cane. He caught the cane and told her to calm down, then turned and whispered urgently, "She has severe heart disease. I'm begging you, don't cause a scene right now." He even pulled out my medical records. The old woman glanced at them and sneered, "So crazy from being a cop that she's lost her mind. No wonder her parents died young." Nobody taught her better. He escorted her away. He never looked back at me. I sat on the ground. There were no tears left. A kind nurse helped me back to the treatment room and asked if I wanted her to call internal affairs. I shook my head, asked for discharge papers, and went back to the dorm. I started packing. Xiaoji posted a photos he was wearing his police jacket, leaning against his chest. The caption read, "Through the storm, I found you. It's worth the pain." I scrolled past and followed her. The taxi was waiting downstairs. I told the driver, "Hong Kong International Airport." As we pulled away, a black police car passed us going the opposite direction. The rear window was half down. He was talking to someone beside him. She was leaning on his shoulder, smiling. The two cars sped away in opposite directions. In the rear-view mirror, the station gate grew smaller and smaller. Shan Yizhen this time. It's really over. When my flight landed in Hai Cheng, it was late at night. Deputy Commissioner Zhu Zh. I Hang walked toward me across the tarmac and saluted. My father, Lin Zan, had been his classmate at the academy. My mother, Zhang Yu, he had personally recruited into the drug enforcement unit. He took my luggage and brought me to the house my parents had left behind. Their uniformed photos hung on the wall, the first-class medals beneath them. He said the department had looked for me for years. He gave me the choices: take my inheritance and live a safe, quiet life, or stay on the force and continue the path my parents had walked. I didn't hesitate. He smiled and said I was truly Lin Zan and Zhang Yu's daughter. I was assigned to intelligence as a junior analyst. No one knew about my past with Shan Yizhen. 3 months later, I went on my first undercover mission. We took down the drug den. That night, I placed white chrysanthemums on my parents' grave, saluted, and whispered, "Mom, Dad, I'm home." 6 months later, Shan Haisen found me in Hai Cheng. I was in the middle of combat training. He wanted to talk about the divorce. I had him taken to the visitor's room. He looked thinner, gaunt. His voice was hoarse as he said he hadn't signed the papers, that we were still married. I said after 2 years apart, the divorce could be finalized unilaterally. He grabbed my hand and said he was wrong. He'd taken care of everything with Xiaoji, and the fire had been her fault all along. I asked if he was trying to tell me I misunderstood everything. He shook his head and asked for another chance. I walked to the window, my back to him. "Do you remember the first mission we did together?" I asked. "Border drug enforcement. You lead the assault team. I handled intelligence. The night before. You told me that if you didn't come back, I should find someone else. I said if you didn't come back, I'd chase you all the way to the underworld. Then you took a bullet 3 centimeters from your heart. I waited all night outside the operating room. Back then, I thought what we had was stronger than love. But I was wrong. To you, I was just a habit. A habit of having me around. A habit of coming home to a light on. A habit of someone who would never leave. That's why you could hurt me again and again. Because you knew no matter what, I'd forgive you. But hearts die, Shemhui Shemhun. Habit is worse than not loving at all. An officer knocked. Deputy Commissioner Shu needed me. At the door, he called out if I had chosen you. If I had protected you instead. I stopped but didn't turn around. There are no ifs. The moment you chose to protect her, we were over. 3 more months passed. In Zhu Zh. I Hang gave me a classified mission: infiltrate a drug cartel and retrieve critical intelligence. It was dangerous. I might not come back. I said I'd go. My parents hadn't expected to come back either. The night before I left, I visited the station's memorial hall. He was standing before my parents' photos, wiping the frames. He told me my mother had been 7 months pregnant and still insisted on working. "What if there's an emergency?" she'd said. 1 less officer, dozens more dead. She'd gone out with an injury, completed the mission, and her water broke as soon as it was over. I was born in the station's clinic. He said, "Come back safe. Your parents are watching." I saluted and said for them, for the land they gave their lives to protect. The mission was harder than expected. 17 days in hiding, 3 near-death encounters. When I was finally pinned down in a valley, I'd run out of bullets. My right shoulder was shot through. Blood soaked half my body.